The sun is the engine of life on Earth, but also the greatest threat if it strays from its stable orbit. Right now, Earth sits in the habitable zone, where water can exist as liquid and temperatures remain tolerable. If the sun moves significantly closer, the fragile balance of climate, atmosphere, and ecosystems would collapse. Even a small percentage reduction in distance would cause chaos initially. The difference might feel like an unusually hot summer. Scientists would measure subtle increases in solar radiation. Meteorologists might report record-breaking heat waves, but few would suspect that the sun itself was drifting closer. The skies would appear sharper, and shadows would grow darker as the sun's rays became more direct. Within weeks, global temperatures would rise by several degrees. For humans, this might mean unbearable humidity in tropical regions and drought in dry areas. Heat waves would no longer last days but weeks. Energy demand for cooling would skyrocket, straining power grids and leading to frequent blackouts. The polar regions, once the planet's cooling system, would show the first dramatic effects. The Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets would begin collapsing at speeds never before seen. Glaciers would vanish, and billions of tons of fresh water would pour into oceans, raising sea levels faster than coastal defenses could be built. Cities like New York, Karachi, Shanghai, and Mumbai would face permanent flooding. This melting would destabilize ocean currents such as the Gulf Stream, which regulate Earth's climate. Once disrupted, weather systems would become unpredictable. Some areas would face endless drought, while others would drown in constant storms. The idea of seasons would disappear. The world would know only heat and disaster. Agricultural regions that supply the majority of food, such as the American Midwest, the Indo-Gangetic Plain, and sub-Saharan farmlands, would be scorched into barren dust. Crops cannot withstand constant exposure to extreme heat and solar radiation. Food scarcity would set in, and famine would become a global crisis. Forests would not escape the devastation. The Amazon rainforest, already vulnerable, would ignite in flames that could not be controlled. Other forests across Africa, Asia, and Europe would follow. Wildfires would release massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, further heating the planet in a vicious cycle. Animals, unable to adapt quickly, would perish. Polar bears, penguins, and seals would vanish with the ice. Birds would lose migration patterns, and marine life would die as oceans became too warm for oxygen circulation. Humanity would witness the sixth mass extinction, this time caused by the sun's merciless approach. Freshwater supplies would evaporate. Rivers like the Nile, Ganges, and Amazon would shrink into cracked valleys. Dams and reservoirs would dry out. Drinking water would become the most valuable resource on Earth, sparking wars between nations and tribes. As radiation increased, Earth's thin ozone layer would struggle to protect against ultraviolet rays. Sunburns and skin cancers would become deadly epidemics. Outdoor activity during daylight would be impossible without heavy shielding. Agricultural workers, builders, and outdoor laborers would be the first casualties. Technological systems would collapse one by one. Satellites in orbit, exposed to intense radiation, would fail. Communications, navigation, and weather prediction systems would go offline. Air travel would become unsafe without GPS and radar support. Humanity would enter a technological dark age while simultaneously facing natural disasters. The oceans, now overheated, would produce hyperstorms. Hurricanes, cyclones, and typhoons would dwarf anything seen in history. With stronger winds and massive storm surges, entire islands and coastal nations would be erased from maps. Refugees would crowd inland areas, leading to resource wars and violent conflicts. Underground survival bunkers would become the last hope for the wealthy and powerful. Air filtration systems, hydroponic farms, and artificial cooling would keep a fraction of humanity alive. But most of the population would be left exposed on the surface, where daily survival would be almost impossible. The Earth's geology itself would feel the pressure. With glaciers gone, the redistribution of weight on Earth's crust could trigger earthquakes. Volcanoes, fueled by shifting magma flows, would erupt with greater frequency, adding ash and greenhouse gases to an already unstable atmosphere. In deserts, sand would turn to glass from the extreme heat. Asphalt on roads would melt, sticking to tires. Steel bridges would warp and collapse. Skyscrapers, designed for current climates, would crack under expanding metals and shifting foundations. Human infrastructure would not survive the transformation. The psychological toll would be devastating. Knowing that the sun was drawing closer, people would either turn to religion and rituals for hope or descend into violence and chaos. Communities might fracture, governments might lose control, and lawlessness would spread across once thriving nations. At night, the world would no longer cool down. The sun's nearness would keep Earth's surface glowing with retained heat. Midnight temperatures could exceed current daytime records, meaning there would be no escape, no relief. Sleep deprivation and exhaustion would weaken humanity further. Plants would wilt under unrelenting sunlight. Photosynthesis would become disrupted, and oxygen production would decline. With fewer plants, air quality would degrade, adding suffocation to the list of dangers. Earth's green lands would become barren brown plains, the oceans would eventually reach boiling point. Fish and marine mammals would perish in mass die-offs. Coral reefs, already endangered, would dissolve completely. The once blue planet would turn gray and steamy, covered in toxic vapors. The atmosphere, thick with steam and greenhouse gases, would trap even more heat. This runaway greenhouse effect would mimic Venus, where surface temperatures melt lead. Earth would become a death trap for any remaining life. Eventually, Earth's protective magnetic field, stressed by solar winds, would begin to collapse. With no shield, solar particles would strip away the atmosphere. Radiation storms would bombard the surface, frying electronics and ending all remaining technological survival systems. Underground bunkers would last only as long as their resources held. With no way to grow sustainable food or generate infinite energy, even the most advanced shelters would eventually fail. Survivors would face starvation or suffocation in the dark above ground. Earth's once vibrant ecosystems would vanish. Grasslands, forests, and oceans would be replaced by lifeless deserts and boiling plains. The planet's surface would resemble scorched rock, cracked under extreme heat. Cultural treasures, libraries, temples, museums would crumble. Cities would be buried under sandstorms or drown in rising seas. Human history, art, and knowledge would be erased, leaving little evidence of our existence. If by chance the sun remained permanently near without swallowing Earth, the planet would stabilize as a barren wasteland. Perhaps microbes in deep caves or oceans might linger, but higher life forms would be gone forever. Or from space, Earth would no longer shine blue and green. Instead, it would glow faintly red and brown, another failed world too close to its star. Future alien explorers might find its ruins and wonder what civilization once lived here before the sun destroyed it. In the end, the sun, once the giver of life, would become Earth's executioner. Humanity's story would close not with nuclear wars or asteroid impacts, but with the slow, relentless advance of the very star that once nurtured its birth.